Everyone knows about werewolves from medieval and later folklore, and from a host of movie iterations of the creatures, but most may not be aware of mentions of the savage beasts in ancient Greek writings. But there are two such instances in one of the most important books in the Western canon, the Histories by Herodotus, and there are other lupine allusions in later classical history. Herodotus does not mention werewolves explicitly in his histories, but he does refer to a tribe called the Nuri, who he describes as being capable of transforming into wolves once a year. This is one of the earliest recorded mentions of a form of wolf skin changing in history. And this is what he wrote. The Nuri share the customs of Scythia. A generation before the campaign of Darius, they were forced to quit their country by snakes, which appeared all over the place in great numbers, while still more invaded them from the uninhabited region of the north, until life became so unendurable that there was nothing for it but to move out and take up their quarters with the Budini. It appears that these people practice magic, for there is a story current amongst the Scythians and the Greeks in Scythia that once a year every Nurian turns into a wolf for a few days, and then turns back into a man again. I do not believe this tale, but all the same they tell it, and even swear to the truth of it. In the following lines he refers to another group of people who are said to have practiced cannibalism. He added, "The Androphagia are the most savage of men, and have no notion of either law or justice. They are herdsmen without fixed dwellings, their dress is Scythian, their language peculiar to themselves, and they are the only people in this part of the world to eat human flesh." Herodotus presents these stories as something he has heard from others, and seems to leave it up to the reader to decide how much to believe. Although the Nuri transforming into wolves is the closest Herodotus actually comes to discussing werewolves, this ancient account provides a fascinating connection to later European folklore about humans transforming into wolves under certain conditions, contributing to the mythological development of the werewolf figure. But could this tale have an even older root? It is quite plausible that Herodotus's mention of the Nuri transforming into wolves could be connected to the concept of the Bronze Age Choreos, a Proto-Indo-European term referring to a band of young warriors who underwent ritualized initiation rites that often involved wolf symbolism. The Choreos were a common element in many Indo-European cultures. They likely represented warrior groups that adopted the traits of wolves, stealth, aggression and ferocity, often living outside of the settled community during their training, or rather, their temporary banishment. They were typically unmarried young men sent out on hunts or raids, and their animalistic association with wolves symbolized their liminal or transitional status. These warrior bands appear in various Indo-European cultures, such as the Roman Lupus warriors, the Germanic Ulfhethnar, and other groups tied to wild animals, especially wolves. Given the broad influence of Indo-European traditions, it's possible that Herodotus, writing about the Nuri and their supposed transformation into wolves, was hearing an echo of a cultural tradition like the Choreos, a warrior initiation group connected with wolves. What he interprets or reports as a literal shape-shifting event could have been a misunderstood account of young warriors ritually becoming wolves during initiation or warrior rites. Herodotus himself seems somewhat sceptical of this story, but the symbolic association of warriors with wolves was pervasive enough in Indo-European culture to have influenced tales of shape-shifting or lycanthropy across different regions. It is interesting to note parallels among Native Americans, some of whose mythology has similar skinwalker or skin-changing elements. Did the legend go back even further, to the prehistoric ancient North Eurasians, a common ancestor of Indo-Europeans, and the Siberians who migrated in the other direction into North America to become Native Americans? The modern understanding of werewolves in mythology and folklore is that they are humans who transform into wolves, either voluntarily or through some curse or magical affliction. This transformation is typically associated with a full moon, though details of the myth vary across cultures and time periods. Werewolves, from the Old English werewolf or man-wolf, belong to a broader category of shapeshifters, individuals capable of changing from human to animal form. The idea of werewolves has its roots in ancient and medieval cultures across Europe, but it can also be found in various other parts of the world in different forms. There are also other representations from ancient Greece, as well as Roman mythology too. The legend of Lycaon, a king who was transformed into a wolf by Zeus as punishment for serving him human flesh, is one of the earliest werewolf tales. This myth gave rise to the term lycanthropy, which refers to the transformation of humans into wolves, but also a psychological condition. There is also another such example in Herodotus's The Histories itself. Referring to Libyan peoples, he wrote, "The latter, that is, eastern Libya, is low-lying and sandy as far as the river Triton, whereas the agricultural region to the west is very hilly and abounds with forest and animal life. It is here that the huge snakes are found, and lions, elephants, bears, asps, and horned asses, not to mention dog-headed men, headless men with eyes in their breasts, I merely repeat what the Libyans say, wild men and wild women, and a great many other creatures, by no means of a fabulous kind." The bizarre headless men with faces in their chests are another ancient legend, that of Blemmies, seen here in the fantastical 15th century work, The Travels of John Mandeville. In searching for wolf-human relatedness in the classical world, we can also look to the founding myth of Rome, the infant twins Romulus and Remus being suckled by a she-wolf. As mentioned, the Norse had legends of Ulfethnar, warriors who wore wolf skins and were said to take on the spirit of the wolf in battle, similar to the berserkers who wore bear skins. In the Middle Ages, werewolf stories were particularly popular in France, Germany, and the British Isles. Belief in werewolves was closely tied to witchcraft, with those accused of being werewolves being thought to have made pacts with the devil to gain their powers. In many later versions of the myth, werewolves transform only during a full moon. This trope became especially popular in 19th and 20th century literature and film. As wolves, werewolves typically have superhuman strength, heightened senses, and often an insatiable appetite for human flesh or livestock. In some versions of the legend, werewolves are vulnerable to silver, and silver bullets or blades are the only means of killing them. Lycanthropy is often used in a psychological sense to describe a condition where a person believes they can transform into a wolf, or exhibits wolf-like behaviour. This condition, called clinical lycanthropy, is a rare psychiatric syndrome that involves delusions of being a wolf or another animal. Werewolves are strongly tied to folklore and symbolise the fear of losing control, the unleashing of primal instincts, and the consequences of human-animal boundaries being blurred. But they may also be a deep echo of an Indo-European past. But that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, share, and most importantly subscribe. And you can also support the channel on Subscribestar via the link in the description, or via YouTube's Super Thanks. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.